Hey everybody, this is the part where I spend 30 to 60 seconds awkwardly looking around like I don't know I just started the webinar. So we're gonna wait for people to roll in. Really cool. This. As I prepare my PowerPoint. Seems pretty prepared. Why don't we pull that up? Have people look at something. Okay. With me on the call, though somewhat a shadowy figure, is Evan Griffith. He's a friend, but he's also more than that. He's a coworker. Evan, can you see my screen okay?
Yep. Deep dive series. Looks good. Hey guys.
They can't hear you. They don't want to hear you. They can't hear you. I just prefer you don't talk.
Well, now I'm going to mute myself.
Good. Evan is here to answer questions as I go along. If you have anything in the chat, please feel free to throw it in the Q&A. But if you also throw it in the chat, Evan is aware that you might accidentally do that. Just throw them in there. He'll be there to help answer them. Okay, I've given it my 60 seconds of relatively awkward. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And obviously it's recorded, so no big deal if you missed the intro. You'll see this later in the recording. Okay, so everybody, welcome to the deep dive series. Today we're talking about course creation in the university section of CloudRadial, September 2021. I mentioned it last month, which was our first ever in the deep dive series. We are basically going to start doing this to kind of give a deeper insight, give deeper tips and tricks on the specific facets of CloudRadial. Last time I goofed it. I did a 30-minute session. I was like, it'll be fine. I went 45. So this time I played it safe. We went an hour long. I assume we'll probably go 45 on this one too, just to be sure. So let's take a look at what we got. So first things first is, what about the deep dive series? Like I said, specifics hosted by me, usually. We'll see if that changes. The director of product services. Why do I have any authority? Because I am CloudRadial expert, and so is Evan, and so are some people listening on this call. I talked to a bunch of MSPs. I've seen a bunch of it. I've seen it all. Everything from, especially as it relates to course creation, from just playing around to an enterprise level kind of usage of it to everything in between. And I build it all the time. So I'm kind of aware of the tips and tricks and gotchas, which is what I'm going to share with you. So as we look at what we're specifically covering with the course creation today, we're going to cover where to create your course. As silly as it sounds, you've got a couple options there. The step-by-step process from the overview page to the lessons to optional exams. And then we're going to talk about where to review that and how to avoid those gotchas. And there are some specifically with the courses, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about courses and do a webinar of it. So before we get into it, and for those that don't know, I hate doing the PowerPoint bit. I try to keep it to no more than 5-10 minutes at max. It's boring. I do everything on the CloudRadial tenant itself, which we'll see. I wanted to answer a couple questions. So why are courses particularly special? And they are quite a bit different than the other content in CloudRadial. So for those unfamiliar, if you're jumping in to check it out, right, CloudRadial can obviously do a bunch of stuff from tickets to KB articles to application links. Courses are specifically special because A, you can monetize them, right? Clients, so your users specifically, will actually see value in those, and those are something you can upcharge for pretty easily because they're a function that is both hard to kind of nail down and just in general take a little bit more effort. So it's something that definitely has a lot of built-in value, especially if you start getting into more niche trainings like HIPAA or OSHA or even Microsoft stuff, right? So there's plenty of value there. Point number 2, or B, I forgot which one I started with, is that the clients can build them for themselves. So obviously in this specific webinar, I'm going to be showing you from your perspective as you would be distributing them, but we're going to talk about the ramifications of giving your clients the ability to do that for themselves so they can add their own value. So as far as your MSP is concerned, you're delivering a service that is a learning management system or an LMS, right? That is part of your portal and what it can do. So that adds a lot of value as well. Third thing is the alternative options can be expensive. We use an LMS, academy.cloudradial.com. For those that have used that, that is not a built-in CloudRadial function. That is a third-party LMS. And trust me when I say they can be really expensive, because they kind of should be. There's a lot of tips and tricks and stuff that happens with LMS systems that are pretty complex, especially if you start getting into stuff like SCORM files and interactive stuff and follow-up. So typically what happens is for a lot of end users, when they go to see if they can set up a training system, they'll find out that it's like pretty prohibitively expensive unless they're pretty big. We're talking hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a month to keep, which is usually pretty overkill. So offering that as a part of the portal turns out to be a pretty attractive thing, especially because it does most of the stuff they really want. And then point number D4, whatever I forgot to say it as, is that they're trackable, right? So it's not just training them and hoping they did it. It's that we can track and report out from who's done that course. And then we can also do the student specific reports. So there's kind of a lot of stuff going on in these courses that make them quite a bit special. Again, when you compare it to something like a KB article where they read it and that's it, the courses are a lot more interactive and they have a lot more oomph to them. So again, in this specific webinar, we're going to be looking at building one. I'm going to talk about some of the preloaded existing ones and how those function. But specifically, one of the questions we get all the time is, where can you find new courses? Typically for these deep dive series, like I did last time on the onboarding, offboarding forums, if I have something, I will give it. I will not withhold information or content. Courses are a bit difficult because course material is something you have to either create or locate. And we have, what you can easily find on the community. So I have a link up there and we'll be sending this to PowerPoint as well. So you can have that link, but it's in the content section under courses in the community. A lot of times your vendors will have some training material. Some of it will be marketing-ish, so be careful with that, but certainly there's nuggets of knowledge. As we'll see, Microsoft produces a trillion different videos on how to use Microsoft products that you can distribute. So the other caveat, and I'm going to put this tentatively, is like YouTube or other platforms. As we're going to see, you can do everything from just writing in the lesson, like with text, or you can embed videos and kind of anything in between. You have to be careful with that. You're only, I have to say this, just make sure, only use content that you're allowed to use and redistribute. Don't get caught, bumming somebody else's content off of that because you can get in trouble if they find out. Be careful. And the other kind of gotcha here, and this is why it's hard to produce content very easily, is that especially if you rely on stuff like YouTube, especially if you're not the originator of that content, what can happen, it's happened to us plenty of times, is that the videos either get unlisted or they get removed or something happens, something weird, and your link breaks and all of a sudden the course doesn't work the way you expected. So you have to be kind of careful when you pull videos from somebody else. But in general, if you find a pretty reliable source like Microsoft, a fat chance, usually they stay up there pretty good. So that's the gist of the intro, right? Again, I want to focus on these steps specifically. I want to kind of walk through that course creation and show you exactly how it works and where you can kind of get started. So let's do that. Let me go ahead and pull up my CloudRadial tenant. I'm going to be using Bootcamp September. This is a brand new tenant that we created. It should have pretty much nothing in it. I mean, this is the standard that tenants come out with whenever we first provision them. If you've gone along and you already are a CloudRadial client and you've already had some of these built out, then really won't be very different at all anyways. So this is good. So let's start with where the courses are located. They're going to be located under the left-hand side under University, and then the LMS module, Learning Management System, Courses, is under Courses, of course. So when we go in there, you're going to see that there's a bunch of stuff. And depending on when you created your CloudRadial tenant, or when it was created, rather, you might have different ones. This one is the latest version, so it has all the latest courses that we have in there. Some of these originate from us, like we literally were the ones that just built a couple and created them. Examples include the cybersecurity course, the HIPAA one, and I believe there's this Teams one. Those are all three originating and coming from CloudRadial. A lot of these other ones, like these mastering ones that you see here, are from a third-party course provider that we partnered with called Bigger Brains, and they have some killer stuff. You usually can note those because they're going to have the multicolored brain right here on their thumbnails, so you catch that. And some of the other ones that we do as well is we integrate with new partners and they kind of give us some material. We'll go ahead and put that in there. So you might see some stuff from Help Desk Habits, some stuff from Smileback, right? That's more meant for education for you guys rather than for your end users. But we bundle it all together and I'll show you kind of how to parse that out. But generally speaking, this is it. So let's take a quick look at the anatomy of this before we get into course creation and how this all works. So this overview obviously has a bit of the courses listed up here. You've got this kind of top panel right here that kind of sticks out that shows you different numbers. So you've got these 14 recommended, these are 14 recommended courses. We'll see what that means in a second. 3 of them are required. So you can mark courses as required and they'll be ones that the users are being asked to take. You've got in progress ones and you've got completed ones. And right now I haven't touched it, so I'm kind of 0. So as you click these are sortable. They will sort the ones. Obviously, we start off when you first click, the recommended ones are the ones that are going to show up. If I hit required, they're going to sort the required, and these are going to show nothing. So a lot of the things that happen with people, and we get a lot of tickets for these initially, is that they wonder why their courses aren't all showing here. You might have 20 courses, 50 courses, and you scroll down, you only see this many. You're like, what? The reason that is because depending on how much content you have, it can be a really long load of the page. I mean, like seconds, not like hours, but enough to make people think that the site is slow and stuff. It's not. It just takes a while to load all the thumbnails and all that kind of stuff. So we recommend that you only put the ones that you really want people to see front and center as required. That's what this is. Again, I'll show you where that is in a moment as far as to make that option available. But this category on the right-hand side is how you sort through the full catalog. And again, we do this because you might potentially have tons of them. So if you look and I click on any specific one, obviously it will sort to that specific section, right? So maybe I want to look at just my PowerPoint courses, and I got a lot of them. So realistically, if I click all, you're going to see that a new CloudRadial tenant actually starts with a ton of courses. So here's the actual full course catalog that's just free that comes with CloudRadial. There's a lot of bigger brain stuff. Again, there's some stuff from us, and there's some stuff from our integration vendors and providers and stuff. And generally speaking, that community I mentioned earlier is where we add more. So if you're seeing something that you don't see here, or I'm sorry, that you see here that you don't see in your own tenant, probably check the community. We share those out as they come out because we don't, and you'll see why, we don't mess with your course content. We don't just jam new courses in your tenant, because that can have ramifications for course completion and how that can mess it up. That's one of the gotchas we'll see at the end. So generally speaking, not too complex. Courses show up here, right? We got a little nav bar and you can get to them. The first point that I wanted to talk about is, where do you make your courses? Which seems silly because it's like here, right? Maybe. So courses are one of those things that can be very intricate. As I mentioned at the beginning of the call, knowledge base articles, you throw them up, you write them up, and then you might be done. And you might update it, but it's a knowledge base article. It's not that crazy. Courses can have a lot of components, right? Again, they might have multiple lessons to the course. They might have videos embedded. They might have quiz questions. They might have, a lot of different kind of subsets of those. And because of that, they might require a lot of back and forth editing and tweaking. So your two options when creating a course are to either create them in content or in here. Most people's reaction initially is to create them in content. And for those that don't know, CloudRadial doesn't force you to create anything, right? Whether it's KBs or tickets or courses for individual companies, because we know obviously that you may have multiple companies in your tenant, right? In this case, this bootcamp one just has the one. I'll go ahead and pull up a demo account, right? Your account, especially in the future, may look more like this or more, right? You might have a various number of companies. So again, for scalability purposes, rather than having to build the same Teams course one by one, we want to make sure that we create it in the global kind of template area and we push it out to people from there. And that's what I mean by content. I'm talking about partner, this drop down that you would see if you had the right access as the MSP partner, and this content section. Now, there's a whole thing on this that I don't necessarily want to get into for this call because it'll just take me all over. But the short answer is, this is where you can create templates of stuff and push them out to one or all or a certain subset of those companies. So what I'm going to do for a visual sake is I'm going to minimize all the extra noise that we don't need to focus on. And we're just going to look at this, right? We're going to look at just the templates that hold the courses. And this is what you're actually seeing when you first get into the tenant. Those courses are on your company. You can see those because they're part of the templated content. And they're all broken up in their neat little packages here, whether it's the Bigger Brains courses or those customer service trainings or one of the three ones that we come up with. So as it pertains to making a new course, one of the things you can do is you can create it from here. And I'll show you what that means. So if I were to go, okay, I can either add a course into one of the existing folders, or probably what you want to do is you want to make a brand new one to hold your own stuff as you create it. You would come to the content area, to the template area. You would go ahead and make a new folder to hold your course. First thing CloudRadial is going to ask you is, what are you trying to make? In this case, we're trying to make a new course or set of courses. What do you want to call it? In this case, let's call it our custom courses. And we have a little bit of targeting parameters here. Again, just for the sake of brevity, I'll skip this or I'll skim it really. We're going to be fine with sending these courses to every user, right? Not admins only, not special user groups, just everyone. And we're going to be okay with sending this stuff to all companies. So at this stage, I'm not, again, creating any course. I'm just creating the folder that tells CloudRadial who is eligible to see those courses, which users and which companies, everyone and all. So I'm in that folder. Again, for posterity's sake, I'll back up and you're going to see that in my courses section here, I've got all that stuff and I've got my custom courses one created. So when I go in the folder, which is what happened, it took me directly in there, I can now create the course. Now, I actually don't prefer this option. I don't teach it this way because this is one of the downsides of CloudRadial as it stands. So if you were to go create a course, and we'll talk about this, right? I would go to add a new course. And when I go to add it, it's going to give me the options to set it all up, which is cool. And as we go to set it up, again, there's a lot of components to it. So we'll see that there's a lot of things to tweak and modify. And most people, they like to see it, right? They like to build it out. They want to do the preview page. They want to modify it a little bit. They want to change the lessons, and they want to be able to review those changes. This view that you're seeing right here is basically the course creation view. So it's not very easy to see the changes you've made as far as what the end user sees. This is more of, again, your kind of builder view. So for that reason, we don't necessarily recommend doing it. It would work fine from here, because what'll happen often is people want to make, again, those changes and they want to see them. And in order to see those changes, you would have to keep publishing out that course. And that publish is going to push it out there. And I'll show you exactly what I mean with a really dummy one. And I will work my way back and explain what I'm doing in a moment. All right, so I'm throwing a bunch of BS test stuff. I'm going to just jam this full of stuff here so I have something to push out. So let's say in theory, this very bare bones fake course is good enough, right? I've created it. I'm happy with that. Great. So here it is. And as it stands, if I were to do this, my course is created. I have to push it out, right? You see unpublished to make sure it actually gets onto the company. So we're going to do that. So there goes publishing is started. Great. Now, even in this scenario, I have one company, there's about 20 users in there. So CloudRadial has to propagate that course and all of its content to that company. And you saw, what, maybe 10 seconds or so, it did it. Bootcamp completed successfully. So if I open up another Bootcamp September as if I were the user, right? The user experience is going to be that if I go to the university and courses, I'm going to see right here, this is my test one, and I got it, right? So the users can see that and all that kind of stuff. Now, again, on your end, you want to be able to double check and see how your course is looking, to see if it looks right, to see if everything is good, which is cool. The annoyance with doing it from content is if I were to update this, right? Let's say I go, oh, minor change. I want to make sure that works well. I have to go back in here and I have to modify it, right? Maybe I want to add test number 2. Oops. Okay. Forgot to add that in there. What happens now is to double check that, right? You have to re-push it out. You have to do this publish thing. And this frustrates some people, even though it's not frustrating in itself as far as the process, because obviously, again, you're going to have to wait for the publishing to finish before you can actually preview it. So if I'm trying to make sure it looks good, I have to wait for that. And then when I refresh this, it goes, test number 2 now. There it is. This is not really a good example because I'm in a tenant with one company and few users. For those that have lots of users and lots of companies, publishing might take minutes. And it's really frustrating for you if you're trying to see your changes and you keep publishing, you have to wait and do it and wait and do it. So the reason I start this training off with where do you build your courses is because there's 2 options. One of them is this way. You might be okay with building the whole course and pushing it out and being fine. But again, a lot of you guys are visual learners. You want to see the changes you're affecting. So it doesn't really work for you. The alternative to this, I'll go ahead and delete this, this test course that I made. I don't need that anymore. The alternative to that is not doing it inside of the content package here. And you can actually build a course directly within a university. So you can see here, I'm back in that, actually I'll do it over on this side. I'm back in here under university and courses. And as I'm in here, especially if you're a partner level user, you're going to see that you have the ability to add a course directly from here. The UI that you're going to see when you click this button is exactly the same. So what's the deal? Well, again, for some of you that might already know this, the content one is intended to create it from the template zone and push it down. If I do what I'm doing right now and I just click on add, I'm adding a course local to just this one company, right? So if I had 20 other companies, they wouldn't be able to get it. This is just the one. And some people prefer to kind of create and tweak their courses this way because there's no need to publish. It's instant changes. So if I want to change something and I want to see how it looks, I can basically add it, do a live little performance of that real quickly. Test, just like I did before. Right? That looks good. I hit submit, no publish, immediately takes me to it, right? I see it, great. Let's say I go, oh, actually, I don't like it. Now I'm going to edit it. I go, test 2. I hit submit. immediately makes the change, right? So you can see that for visual learners, for those that prefer to have this immediately going, they prefer to build the courses locally because they can really see those. So easy, quick distinction, right? Two different ways to do the exact same thing. And I'll show you how this can be pushed back out, but that's something we need to know. So I'll say that right now, actually, because it's a good time. Let's say you build the perfect course, as we're going to, and you want to make sure that not just this one company has made it, and you want to make sure that everybody else can see it. How do you handle that? Well, the good news is that most people prefer to build these courses as they're trying them out and they're trying to experiment it out. They'll build the course specifically in their company, right? They'll build it in the core MSPs ones, because obviously you can use your own company as like a test bed, which is kind of what I'm doing. And when you finish creating the course locally, you always have the option, not just with courses, but with anything, to save it back to that content area with this orange Save As button. So what this is going to do is it's going to let you take something you created locally, move it back to it. As long as there's a folder to hold that content, I can save it back. So it's a little bit of a preference thing, right? It does the same thing either way. If you're comfortable with CloudRadial, this method is probably a little bit better. Obviously, I am. But if you prefer to build them from content, push it out, that's okay. You're only going to suffer from those publishing times. That's about it. In this method, right, I created the course locally. I can save it back to custom courses. And sure enough, what it's going to do is it's going to put it back in that course content catalog that I just created over here. You're going to see that that test one is there, and then I can push it back out. Not a huge deal. Again, especially if you're building complex courses, I would recommend for most people to build them locally and then save them back. That's going to be a little bit easier. Okay, so let's delete this crap. Let's go see a real one. All right, so let's talk about the anatomy of course creation for a second, because again, courses can be intricate. They don't have to be, but obviously this is based off of your material. So as far as the actual course creation process, there's a lot of what you see is what you get, which is good. That makes it kind of simple. So if I go to add a new course, what's going to happen? Well, the first part of a course is its overview page. This is the page that talks about what the course is, what it covers. Obviously sky's the limit as far as how much detail you want to put. So what we're seeing here is going to be the creation page for you as the MSP or the partner admin, or I'm sorry, not partner, the company administrator. So if you give them the ability, the person who's creating the course, like the point of contact or whatever. On the actual student side, right, I'm going to keep flipping between these tabs to show you what a student would see versus what you see, so we have a clear understanding. Let's use the cybersecurity course. When I click on it, the first thing I'm going to see is that splash page. That's this thing right here, the info page. So it's going to be kind of a section that tells me what the course is about. It's going to give me a button to enroll in that course, actually start taking it. And then as we build out lessons, it's going to give them here so I can jump to different sections of it, right? So what we're building at the very first thing, the first thing that CloudRadial is asking you is, what do you want on that splash page, to let them know. There's certain best practices that a lot of LMSs want you to do here. Everything from obviously give a good description of the course, why they should take it. Some of the other stuff that some people recommend is how long does it take, more or less. You can see that we kind of did that with our cybersecurity course. What will you learn? How long will it take? Who should take this course? Who's the audience? And then a bunch of kind of explanation to it. So again, sky's the limit or not, right? Depending on how much you want to do in here. But in this case, I'll keep it super bare bones just to keep it very easy. This is the course description. Now you can get fancy with this section too. For ours, we kept it super, super clean and easy, especially for the cybersecurity one. It's just a wall of text, a little bit of bold. In certain cases, for example, in the help desk habits one, we've even embedded a video directly in there. So that might be one where you want to say, hey, we want to do this, we want to do that, and click here to find out why you want to take it. Doesn't happen too often because usually the videos are within the lessons themselves. But again, this is completely up to your own discretion. So this little handy editor will let you do a bunch of stuff, right? Anything from, again, modifying the text to embedding things. And really you want to kind of play around with these options to see what specifically works for you. What I wanted to look at first, before I blabber on about description forever, is also the categories and stuff. So the categories are going to help it be sorted under the right section, right? And this is to help users just sort it. So your standard sorting stuff. What's going to happen is when you click on category, CloudRadial is going to suggest to you to put it in one of the existing ones if you want, right? So if I'm building a Teams course, I go, just drop it under the same thing. You don't have to. You can just type something else. If I want to type in something brand new, like my example, oh, great. there it is. We'll just put it under a new category over here, right? Called my example. That same category is listed under here, under the cards, to help people understand kind of where it falls. So name of the course, of course, is just the name of the course. So we're going to call this the Bootcamp Webinar Example Course. I'm known for my creativity. And the tags on the side are going to be how you can group courses together. This is not really a function that most people use, but not because it's a bad function per se. These things, if you were to add tags, they would show up on the right-hand side over here. They're not even used right now. The reason we don't use them currently is because CloudRadial is kind of headed in a direction where you'll be able to use search functionalities to pull up stuff. So if I use a search box to type in Outlook, right, I might get served Outlook-based courses. I might get served a ticket on Outlook. You can see this kind of proto version. It's out and live with this search bar up here. I'll use that very same example. So let's do, maybe I want to do cybersecurity. And what's going to happen is when I search that, right, CloudRadial is going to try to match my search input with relevant results. And you'll see that one of the first things it pulls up is like, do you want us to do the course? What are you trying to do? So you don't need the tags per se, but what they help you do is they help that search query just get found easily. So if you can think of more things to tag it, you can. Again, not a super important thing. You can see it's not a required field like these because we're still working on that feature. There's going to be a lot more to it. But for right now, if you want to just help that out, you can. I'm going to skip it just because we don't need to go too crazy on that. So category is good. Name of the course is good. Description is as detailed as you want, right? I'll even do a little bit of extra effort. It's an arbitrary 3 minutes. Feel free to actually put effort in yours. And let's say that's good. Cool. Now, there's a couple extra fields here. So one of them is the exam passing score in percent. As we're going to see, when we build out the individual lessons, so the actual things that people take, you have the option of putting quiz questions to them. And with those, you have the option of dictating how much should they pass before they're allowed to move on to the next lessons. In this case, we're saying they have to get at least a 70% on those questions. You can put 100% if every question must be correct. You can put 0% if they can just fly through it. I'm not sure why you would. Or you can just not do quiz questions at all. So if you don't need to, if you're not doing quiz questions in the first place, this number is irrelevant. But if you are, this is how you can kind of modify the percentage levels, right? You'll see that in a moment, how that kind of plays into it. I'll leave it at 70. Actually, I'll do 50. That's even easier. That's cool. Now, when people complete courses, and we'll see this as well, they're going to get a certification that they completed it at the end of the course. And you have the option of saying how long that's good for. And this is in months. So you could say, hey, 1 month, 12 months, 999, right? However long. And basically what that's going to do is it's going to keep them marked as passing in the reports, which we'll also see in a moment. If you mark it low, right, let's do 1 and they pass and everything's good. The 31st or 32nd day, right, the day after the course completion, it'll revert back to required. Common use case for this is mostly for like compliance-based things, right? You got a yearly requirement to take an OSHA course or something like that. You want to make sure they have, right? You can kind of keep the beats on. So when you do the reports, you can see who's done it, who needs to redo it, and all that kind of stuff. So in this case, we're cool with leaving it at 12. You've got the option to trigger that course as required for everyone. And this is one that gets a lot of questions from people, because when we look at what does a course required really mean? Well, currently, all that really does is it marks it as required up here, right? So they can sort by it a lot easier. And the other thing they can do is whenever you go to the home page, regardless of what home page you have set in CloudRadial, your required courses will appear over here. Let me do it as the actual person. 1 moment to show you the proof. It's not showing up because I am not an actual person. That's why. Let's do this sucker, Ricardo. Who's that idiot? Here you go. Courses waiting, right? 3 courses waiting that you have not started. So when I click on it, it takes me right to those courses to let me know. So in this case, right, this is just to help people navigate to it. Now, unfortunately, a lot of the questions we get is like, well, is there any way to remind them? Is there any way to gate them, to stop them from using features of the product until they complete the course? No, it's really just to prod them. A lot of the follow-up process that you would want to do for these is going to be a little bit manual because it's a light LMS, to be honest, right? It's not like a full thing. It's not this crazy automation process. It's really a course meant for people to take. They kind of track the progress. And then if an administrator, specifically not really you guys, but like your users want to get in there and prod people, they have a way to do so. So required is just an easy flag to say these are the most important ones they have to take. So that's really the ramifications of that. And then lastly, the option is that shown on the initial home pages, aka is that shown under the recommended? And in this case, we might want to do that because that'll make it show up under here, right? So when they first go to courses, they don't have to navigate, they don't have to search for it. It would show up right here along with everything else. So that's the bare bones to the course splash page, right? So again, if you want to get fancy with it, that's totally cool. And the last option, which is sensical, is do you want to put a course image? Recommended size is 300 by 200 pixels. That's your size right here to put in these images. I don't actually know if I have anything ready. I'll try. Let's see, on my desktop, I usually keep something. This is going to come out janky. Let's do it. So I just put in a 256 logo. So let's see, there it is. Not that janky. So this is a CloudRadial logo, bootcamp webinar example, right? They click the page, they get that splash screen, and that's cool. Now, this isn't a completed course whatsoever because you can see that they don't have anything to actually take, right? There's no lessons, which we're going to add. I wanted to stop here and show you what an actual experience would look like. So if I were to actually do the cybersecurity course, actually I'll do it with this one. I would click on cybersecurity, for example, right? Seeing it says the little required banner. If you flip that required option, it does the banner. They click on that and they're going to say, yes, I want to take this, right? So they can't do anything until they enroll. When I click on enroll, it goes, hey, do you actually want to do this? Yeah. Enrolled today. The courses become clickable. The lessons become clickable. So I start, say, okay, lesson number 1. And when I click on the lesson, it takes me to it, right? We're going to talk about this as well, but generally speaking, I work my way through it. So as I read this, as I understand it, I click next. If there's a quiz triggered, it'll go through it, right? What are our information? What are hackers trying to access? Everything. Yes, right? I pass it. Hooray. The minimum passing score was 70. I got 100. I move on. Next thing, right? Next lesson. Now, if I fail a course, right? Let's say I go, this is the right one. It's going to say, take it again. So it's going to either let me close it or redo it. And as I redo it, takes me back to the lesson. So as we kind of move through this, and I'll just do this really quickly to say it, right? We've got all these different things that can do it. Yes, look out. Oh my gosh, I'm like guessing for them now. If they close out and let's say they're like, I'll come back to it later, that's okay, right? They'll be able to see their courses, pick up where they left off, and then they kind of get an idea of what, where they're at, 29% completer set. So back to our example, again, this is where it's your discretion as to how intricate this will be. Whenever we build a course, right, we'll go back to editing this one, splash pages to your liking. The next step is good to go build those moduled lessons. So when I click on the lessons tab up here, I have the option to build them, right? And it's kind of like, for those familiar with our ticketing module, it's very similar. Basically, it stacks on top of itself. So when I go to add a lesson, you've got the UI to make that lesson. You can minimize that down, add more, right? And this is how you kind of build more and more and more. In this case, I will probably just delete this one and the second one, just to leave one. Keep it super simple. All right, overview is good. Lesson number 1 automatically comes as new lesson, should come expanded. So what you were seeing here, so let's click on cybersecurity. This is the lesson name, right? And that's the first thing that CloudRadial is asking you. It's what's the name, or the title rather, of the lesson. So we're going to do like lesson 1, common for people to do like numerics like this. Lesson 1, how to use CloudRadial, right? The overview is just that little bit of text beneath it. So when you look underneath this, it's just a sentence or two to help describe it further, so people know if that's the correct one, right? How to get it. It's just a little bit of an extra explainer. So we're going to just say, see how to use. Great. Now the lesson itself. So as we saw in the cybersecurity one, when I click on a specific lesson or any one of these guys, right? As I click on the lesson, it becomes clickable. This is the lesson text. So again, kind of similar to that overview page, you've got as much stuff as you want. So I can go putting a bunch of garbage text in my example, but very common, what I recommend to most people is text is super boring for most people. Obviously it's necessary. Most people prefer to embed, again, some kind of videos because they're more engaging. So the good news is that the editor in CloudRadial is really good about videos. It's really actually pretty slick. So let's just use an example. I've got a Vimeo pulled up on another tab here on another screen. So I'll just grab a link to a Vimeo video. And it's this easy, right? If I want to add a little bit of text, that's cool. There's this button, which is pretty handy, which is to insert the video. So I'm just gonna jam that Vimeo link, hit insert, and it works slick, right? Just right in there. So still got the usual stuff. You can position it, you can kind of move it around wherever you want, maybe align left, and that'll play right in there. So that as we're gonna see in a second, this is gonna be really nice for the UI for people to do. YouTube works just as well, right? So if you've got YouTube videos, that's even easier. I'll delete that and do a YouTube one. So YouTube, same concept, grab yourself a link, paste it in there, no problem. I prefer personally to use something like Vimeo because what happens often with YouTube ones is whenever you click on them, I think there's a way, if those are perhaps more knowledgeable than me, it shows like your related videos and whatnot in there, but same concept, right? They can click on it and do whatever. So I'll just do my Vimeo one. So let's go put that link back in there. Cool. So if it weren't total garbage, this would be looking kind of realistic. The other thing you have to do, right, is you can also do the additional information sidebar. Totally optional. You don't need to do this. We do this sometimes for courses that require further explanation. So a good example is you might have all of your stuff here. Here's a video or whatever. And then this sidebar right here will show that additional information. So it's really good for if you want to link to an external document, if you have additional resources that don't quite make sense in the middle of it, think of it as again, additional resources, hence the name. So in this case, I might say, hey, check out that's patronizing, but that's fine. Cool, great. So that's all there is to this, right? And as we keep going, we can keep doing it over and over and over again with as much stuff as we want. Now, the intended behavior now is going to be like this. When we go to hit submit, we've got it built. That looks kind of okay. Let's see what happens here. So this is another user. They're going to now see that course. Bootcamp webinar example. They go to enroll in it. Great. They go to take it. They click on it, right? They kind of get the idea. They get served it. They can play the video. They can do whatever. Looks nice. They got the little links. They got their additional sidebar and the thing. And then because there's no lessons or quizzes on this one, when they hit next, straight to complete. It goes, hey, you did it. Congratulations. Get your certificate. This doesn't really do anything. This is kind of more of like a pat, stroke, as we say internally, of just great job to help them kind of get it. It doesn't trigger anything. So it's purely for their own process. As I'll show you in reporting in a minute, we track their progress anyways. But if they want to, what it'll do is it'll load a PDF with their name on it and the company they completed and the course they completed. So in this case, it might be freaking out because I'm not a real user. Let's see if it works. Oh, it did. So it goes, hey, Bootcamp September, my fictitious company, to me for completion of this on this date, right? We've got all that kind of stuff. They can download it, feel good about themselves. When I finish a course, I'm also going to have a little banner that says completed. And when I refresh this page, it would actually say it, right? It'd say move in progress to completed. So that's pretty good. Now, with actual users, right, you can see that it might, I don't know if it will or not, because again, I'm not technically a real user. Oh, it did. Good job, developers. We want to go back to over here and we want to talk about the quiz component. The quiz component, not terribly difficult, but again, to your discretion is how complex it should be. So if you're going back in, right, let's go back in and go ahead and edit this one, right? As you build these lessons out, you have the option for each lesson to add those exams or quizzes on each one. And you're going to notice that every time you build one, there's the option on the right-hand side to say questions for this one, exam for this one, and so on. So if I do it, you're going to see it's a pretty simple one as well. Kind of uses the same UI and thought process here. When I hit exam, it's going to go, hey, let me add a question. And again, very similar UI. What's the question, right? Does this question work? That's my question. What are the answers? Basically, the only answer type that CloudRadial can handle is true or false and multiple choice, because that's really all that's built into the UI. We might do more if there's some interest in there, but for the most part right now, this has done us pretty well, right? So in this case, we'll give one answer as yes, and one answer is no. And you're going to see that there's an option to say, hey, yes is the correct answer, and it'll highlight a green. So as you build the courses, you know, I built that out. This is question number one, it works. Again, I could do it again. Next question, right? Is this cool? Right, we're going to say, maybe I don't want to just do true or false. I want to say no, yes, maybe, and definitely. Definitely. So you can't do multiple correct answers. You're going to see that if you try to do that, again, it's really just the one selection. It's not a multi-select multiple choice. It's just one or the other. So there's no stopping how many answers you can put and how long your question is, but there's this, right? So again, I'm not going to do a jillion of them because it really is that same process. And that's the nice thing about courses is that, like, even for this example webinar, I'm not having to create frickin' 20 different lessons and 80 different quiz questions. It's just the same process over and over again. So now that I've got that right, I'm going to hit submit on it. Great. If I go to take the course as a student, right, just like we saw before, great. This is how those are triggered. So same concept. I watch the video or I don't. When I hit next, I get those served up. I did it too. Next. I got my certificate. Now this time as a real user, so I think this will work a little better, but it worked last time, so I'm happy. And it's going to print me out that certificate. I can take it home. This one is actually me, Ricardo or Ricky. I can't remember what I put. So cool. Now I've actually completed the course and I've got the certificate loaded up and everything, or I will, because I stall for time for it to load. There it is. Great. So that's really all there is to the course completion. Now, for you guys as the MSPs, you also want to be aware of the other parts to it, right? So that really wraps up the completion of the course itself. And again, those same concepts that we saw are the same thing in content, right? You can do all of that stuff directly in here. It's not like what I did is mandatory, but as you saw, even during this webinar, I went back and forth a whole bunch. I clicked, I hit submit, I did that. That's what I was saying earlier about, like, there's nothing stopping you from doing a one shot and wrapping this up. But if you want to be able to make quick changes and publish them and see them, right, that's your decision. So in this case, had we done this all in one shot, totally fine. If we do it the same way I just did, right, where I build it in university, if this is my theoretical completed course, there's nothing stopping me from saving it as and putting it back there. It's not a huge deal, but again, it helps personally for me to be a little bit more visual. Now, let's talk about two more things. One is going to be the reports. So as users take the courses and have them visible to them and everything, what's going to happen is they're going to be able to, do this and have fun with it. And under the compliance tab over here, there's a section for training. Now, this tab is part of the tabs that are only visible to administrative level users. So end users would never see this in the first place. When the administrator goes to the training tab, what they're going to be able to see is a couple different views. One is all of the courses available to them, and they can actually see the enrollees and the completions on a course by course basis. So in this case, the cybersecurity one or this one, right? You can see that if I click on bootcamp webinar, I go, who's completed it? Ricky did, and he did it. His last session was the only session in there, right? Great. Download it as Excel, serve that up, and that's all cool. The other thing you can do is you can look at it by student, which has been more of a popular thing. And this is new. We added this not that long ago. But in this case, I can see all of the students in the company. Here's Ricky, right? I can see that he was actually doing it as of 3 minutes ago. When I click on Ricky, right, I can see kind of his overall stats. I can see the started, the required, I can see the last activity, and I can see a couple of those other things. So I saw that he did the bootcamp webinar and he started but did not complete the cybersecurity one. So actually pretty reliable tracking overall, because it helps to kind of understand what it is. And what I was mentioning before about that certification or that how long completed, right now it shows us completed and all that kind of stuff. It would revert back to not started if I had set that for like a month, right? A month from now, this will go back to not completed and they need to redo it. So that's kind of the basis of it. So that's all there really is. So where I want to end on this is some of the gotchas with courses that are really important for me to kind of highlight, because courses should be treated very delicately. Courses are the only piece of content in CloudRadial that carry some weight to them as far as tracking, right? With the KB articles or courses or whatever, or tickets or whatever, you can update those, delete those, push them back out, and there's not really a big consequence because they just serve a function. With courses like we saw, a personal user has invested time taking and doing it. So what happens is if I were to go delete this course, I won't, my history would be wiped out because my course is gone, and therefore it goes no course, no history, no nothing, right? And most people don't go around outright deleting their courses, don't get me wrong. But what happens often is they'll go, oh, I need to make a change. And like, for whatever reason, they might think that it's okay to like duplicate it and push that out instead and cause kind of a mess. And it's like, you have to be very careful. In fact, when you try to mess with a course, like deleting it, right? One of the things that CloudRadial will do that it won't do for any other piece of content is it'll pull up this message. If you delete this course, all enrollments in history will be lost. So you got to be really careful. I'm not saying courses can't be modified. Like you saw what I did, I can go in and change it up and add and remove stuff, and that won't mess with the completion status. That'll keep it just fine. But if you delete a course and you push it back out and it comes back out, it'll be treated as if it were a new course, essentially wiping the history. So the gotcha that you have to be really careful with is, if this happens all the time with stuff like Bigger Brains, by the way, if someone has already taken the course and all of a sudden you go, actually, I'm going to update this, I'm going to delete this and put a new package, that's where you kind of run into that, like, oh, be super sure if you're going to do that. Last note, I guess we'll look at some of these. So you saw that how these work, right? You saw that whether it's the bootcamp one I built, the help desk habits ones, you can kind of reverse engineer all these and take a look at them, and you're going to see that they're built exactly that way. So it's not a bad idea to dive into some of the sample ones, take a look at how they're built, kind of copy them. Maybe you can literally save as and kind of tweak them up and put your own videos, but some of that stuff works out pretty well as far as like reference material. And the Bigger Brains ones are worth mentioning because they don't work like any other ones. So Bigger Brains are interesting because when you click on a Bigger Brains course, like let's do this Mastering Office one, it's going to pull up the same initial one, the same initial splash page, right? A little picture in there, and that's all cool, but they only have one lesson. They don't have multiple lessons. And the reason this is because when you take a Bigger Brains course, this is not pulling up a course that was built in CloudRadial. In fact, if you edit it, right, you're going to see that when you go to lessons, it's got one course and it doesn't have anything. You're like, what? What's happening? Now, when you actually take the course, what happens is a different UI is loaded from Bigger Brains. So a lot of people try to modify them or think they can add to them. Not really, because again, what's happening is there's a back library of all these Bigger Brains courses that's getting called to. So this works as it's supposed to. I mean, it plays the videos, it does all the stuff all well and good. And even when you complete it, and this is a super lengthy course, it does the certificate just like everything else. But I thought that'd be a good clarification because sometimes people are like, why can't I modify them? These are kind of like their own thing. So I believe, unless I'm missing something critical, this is a pretty good wrap up of the course deep dive. Evan and I have been absolutely not watching a single thing. Any questions or thoughts or anything that we should address, or did you already do that in the chat? You tell me, pal.
So the only thing that somebody asked was that maybe you could kind of show or at least explain how it can be done is when they're trying to add videos that aren't as intuitively available to add, but they are still public facing videos.
Yeah, that's a good question. That happens every now and then. I've used some kind of like substandard players, or there might just be something a little bit odd. And remember that with any video you create, so let's say a video you want to pull in, you don't have to use the handy dandy thing, because this plugin, which is what this is, right, is built to work with the more like modern ones, and embedding URL or whatever. If all else fails, you always have the option to do the code view. And a lot of times like a simple HTML embed code will do you wonders. I mean, it's just like embed video, source, click, be done. The one catch with this thing is you can see like this is the code that we added. This was added by that button that I clicked. It's kind of a weird quirk to the plugin that we use. When you write in your code, so even if we do like, I think W3 Schools is really good about that. So it's like video embed code. Usually you're going to find a lot of stuff in W3 Schools for some basic HTML, something like this, right? So you literally just grab that guy, you're going to paste it in there. So we're going to take W3 Schools. I've used this so much, I already know it's going to be a Muppets video. Watch. I paste that guy in there, and I have to hit the button again. This is one of the weird things. So like I said, code view, paste your stuff, hit the code view, and it's going to be the Bohemian Rhapsody Muppet video. Like, I don't know what I'm talking about. I do. So this is another example. Again, it happens all the time. This is actually a little bit more flexible, believe it or not, if you're kind of okay with HTML, because you can obviously mess with the size and the height and all that kind of stuff. But that'll basically, if you can get something public facing, you can do it with that. Hopefully that answers it, and it's not a roundabout way to show my favorite Muppets video.
Yeah, and the only other question I had was about just content that we generate in general. A lot of times I just want to mention it's hard for us to, especially when it comes to providing security training and courses. We have customers all over the world. So deciding what best security training we can make and making sure that it provides compliance can always be tough. If you can't find anything in the community based on your location, the Bigger Brains catalog can provide a lot of good tools as well. So I definitely recommend looking into that. But the community is always going to be the best way to see if you can find people in your country or in your location or just in your industries that are providing pretty solid security or compliance coursework. And of course, you can always ask us. As Safi would say, I don't like to sell things here, but you can always ask us to create something for you. And, you know, with Jumpstart or something similar like that, we can do some course creation on our end and provide it for you as well.
Yeah, for the most part, that's a good question, because we honestly, a lot of people ask that in the first place, because a lot of people are using stuff like KnowBe4 or just other third-party providers, and short of CloudRadial integrating with them, which we be fine with, as long as it kind of works. It's kind of a unique system. Bigger Brains works really well with an HTML library, which is kind of what we're running. We can figure something out, but for a lot of people that want to do, like, again, third-party security stuff, we run into this weird issue that it's like Evan and I are CloudRadial experts, and we know some of the other stuff, but we're not security. So a lot of times, could we go find security videos and put them in there? Yeah, but we wouldn't even know what we're talking about. So if like something is wrong or out of compliance, we'll just end up pushing a bunch of crap content. So it's like we really have to either have a very specific use case, or we have to be kind of guided as to where to pull the resources. So logistically, that's why I put that slide at the beginning of like, where do you get the content, right? Which is this question. It can be tough to find the right one. Ideally, your vendors, especially for security, would have some things, and that's what he's talking about, where it's like we might be able to use that to actually build the course and have good reference material to build it off of. So it's a good question. It just is unfortunately a lot more challenging than you'd think initially.
Yeah, if you ask us if something is some kind of secure or compliance, legally, we don't know.
We're like, can't legally advise you. That's why for a lot of the stuff, especially, it's a whole thing with CloudRadial in general. We're into like the compliance and like assessing, but we're never going to ever call ourselves like an audit. And that kind of applies to the security stuff too, because we just don't have the expertise, at least not yet, to be able to truly be like 100%. They take this course, they're covered under so-and-so act, and we don't know. This is really just for education's sake to determine if they should be or not. And that's actually a good point on my own ramble train for yourselves too, especially for liability's sake. I understand the need for it. So a lot of times people will go out of their way to put phishing courses or some other stuff in here just for education, just because that adds another gap and layer between yourself and the company. So should the company become hacked or something happens or somebody opens a phishing email, you can always, and this is why it's nice, you can always refer back and go, hey, I put that out, I made it required, I sent 3 emails or whatever, and I can tell you that nobody has done that course, right? This doesn't just have to be a great fulfillment for personal reasons. It could be a great kind of, again, stopgap CYA to say, I provided the training, no one has even done it. There's that, right? So multi uses. This, again, courses are rather special when you compare to more of the simple content in there. Any other questions, Evan, or is that about it? You answer all the other ones?
Nope, that's it.
Cool. All right, thanks, guys. I appreciate you very much. Join us next time. I think we're going to be talking about policies, I believe. If not, we might call an audible on it, but you'll be notified when we'll do another deep dive next month. Appreciate you joining it. This will be available on YouTube, and I believe that our marketing team is going to send out the PowerPoint with the link to stuff, and just in case you want to review. So thank you very much, guys, and I'll catch you for the next one. Have a good day.